Swami Vivekananda. Its ground becomes firm by long, constant efforts with great love for the end to be attained. Restraint does not come in one day, but by long, continued practice. That effort which comes to those who have given up their thirst after objects either seen or heard and which wills to control the objects is non attachment. Two motives of our actions are what we see ourselves, the experience of others. These two forces are throwing the mind, the lake, into various ways. Renunciation is the power of battling against these and holding the mind in check. Renunciation of these two motives is what we want. I am passing through a street and a man comes and takes my watch. That is my own experience. I see it myself and it immediately throws my chitta into a wave taking the form of anger. Allow that not to come. If you cannot prevent that, you are nothing. If you can, you have vairagyam. Vairagyam. Similarly, the experience of the worldly minded teaches us that the sense enjoyments are the highest ideal. These are tremendous temptations. To deny them and not allow the mind to come into wave form with regard to them is renunciation. To control the twofold motives powers arising from my own experience and from the experience of others and thus prevent the chitta from being governed by them is vairagya. These should be controlled by me and not I by them. This sort of mental strength is called renunciation. This vairagyam is the only way to freedom. That extreme non attachment, giving up even the qualities, shows the real nature of the Purusha. It is the highest manifestation of power when it takes away even our attraction towards the qualities. We have first to understand what the Purusha, the self, is and what are the qualities. According to yoga philosophy, the whole of nature consists of three qualities. One is called tamas, another rajas, and third sakta. These three qualities manifest themselves in the physical world as attraction, repulsion, and control. Everything that is in nature, all these manifestations are combinations or recombinations of these three forces. This nature has been divided into various categories by the Sankhya's. The self of man is beyond all these, beyond nature. It is effulgent by its very nature. It is pure and perfect. Whatever of intelligence we see in nature is but the reflection from this self upon nature. Nature itself is insentient. You must remember that the world nature also includes the mind. Mind is the nature. Thought is the nature. From thought down to the grossest form of matter, everything is in nature. The manifestation of nature. This nature has covered the self of man, and when nature takes away the covering, the self becomes unveiled and appears in its own glory. This non-attachment, as it is described in aphorism 15 as being control of nature, is the greatest help towards manifesting the self. The next aphorism defines samadhi, perfect concentration, which is the goal of the yogi. The concentration called right knowledge is that which is followed by reasoning, discrimination, bliss, unqualified ego. The samadhi is divided in two varieties. One is called the samprajanata and the other the asamprajanata. The samprajnata is of four varieties. In the samadhi comes all the powers of controlling nature. The first variety is called the savitarka, when the mind meditates upon an object again and again by associating it from other objects. There are two sorts of objects for meditation: the categories of nature and the Purusha. Again, the categories are two varieties. The 24 categories are insentient, and the one insentient is the Purusha. When the mind thinks of the elements of nature by thinking of the beginning and the end, this is one sort of savitarka. The words require explanation. This part of yoga is based entirely on Sankhya philosophy, about which I have already told you. As you will remember, egoism and will and mind have a common basis, and that common basis is called the chitta. This part of yoga is based entirely on Sankhya philosophy, about which I have already told you. As you will remember, egoism and mind and will and mind have a common basis, and that common basis is called the chitta, the mind stuff out of which they are all manufactured. This mind stuff takes in the forces of nature and projects them as thought. There must be something again where both forces and matter are one. This is called avakta, the unmanifested state of nature before creation, and to which, after the end of a cycle, the whole of nature returns to again come out after another period. Beyond that is the Purusha, the essence of intelligence. There is no liberation in getting powers. It is a worldly search after enjoyment in this life. All search for enjoyment is vain. This is the old lesson which man finds it so hard to learn. When he does learn it, he gets out of the universe and becomes free. The position of water called occult powers is only intensifying the world and in the end intensifying suffering. Though, as a scientist, Patanjali is bound to point out the possibilities of this science, he never misses an opportunity to warn us against these powers. Knowledge is power, and as soon as we begin to know a thing, we get power over it. So also when the mind begins to meditate on the different elements, it gains power over them. That sort of meditation where the external gross elements are the objects is called Savitarka. Tarka means question, Savitarka with question, questioning the elements as it were, that they may give up their truths and their powers to the man who meditates upon them. Again, in the very same meditation, when one struggles to take the elements out of time and space and think of them as they are, it is called Nirvitarka, without question. When the meditation goes a step higher and takes the Tanmatras as its object and thinks of them as in time and space, it is called Savichara, with discrimination. And when the same meditation gets beyond time and space and thinks of the fine elements as they are, it is called Nirvichara, without discrimination. The next step is when the elements are given up either as gross or as fine, and the object of meditation is the interior organ, the thinking organ, and when the thinking organ is thought of as bereft of the qualities of activity and of dullness, it is then called Sanandam, the blissful samadhi. In that samadhi, when we are thinking of the mind as the object of meditation, before we have reached that state which takes us beyond the mind, even when it has become very ripe and concentrated, when all ideas of the gross materials of fine materials have been given up, and the only object is the mind, as it were, when the sattva state only of the ego remains, but differentiated from all other objects. This is called Asmita Samadhi, and the man who has attained to this has attained to what is called in the Vedas bereft of body. He can think of himself as without his gross body, but he will have to think of himself as with a fine body. Those that in this state get merged in nature without attaining the goal are called Prakritalayas, but those who do not even stop at any enjoyments reach the goal, which is freedom.